hello. I'm going to just take a moment before diving in because I'm trying to join my own session on my phone so that if I'm lucky enough to have anybody watching live, I will be able to respond to you. Enough to have anybody watching live, I will be able to respond to you. So I think nobody has joined yet, although I can to have anybody. I'm going to turn the volume down on my phone so that I have the chance to not deafen myself with the noise of myself. I can't tell for sure whether you're here or not. So if you are here, it would be great if you just pop a comment in the chat, just like hello or anything, so that I'll know that someone is. This is so weird. I'm watching a few moments afterwards. I'm saying on my phone what I'm saying now. My computer says nobody's watching. My phone suggests 6 people are watching. I don't know. I do not know if anyone's watching or not. So what I want to do is talk today about, brilliant. Hello, Camila. Thank you so much for replying. That really helps. So at least I know that it's working. And just because you have answered, I know that we're all busy. So if you want to leave, no hard feelings, obviously. But it's really good to know that actually you're there. Oh, hello, Lana. Blimey, from Canada. You got up early. Hello. Very nice to have you here. Now, one of the things I actually wanted to do at the very beginning was, as I've already somewhat done, acknowledge the extreme weirdness and difficulty for me of doing this in the virtual space of a LinkedIn live thing, because I can't actually see your faces. So what I'm doing is trying to second guess what my audience may be thinking or up to and what you want and so on. Now, I know what I wrote about what the event is, and I know that I had a certain number of responses, so I'm going to try to deliver that. But this morning I decided I'll try and get in touch and say hello to everyone who's shown interest in attending and just say hello. So I sent some messages on LinkedIn. I just want to show you what happened after I'd sent a few, because it's almost as if, Brian can't hear anything. Can anyone hear anything? Hello, Brian. Thanks for being here. And can you hear anything now? Can anyone hear anything? Wait a few seconds. Oh, great. Thank you, Nita. And thanks for being here, Nita. I hope I pronounced that right. I hope I pronounced Brian right. Thanks, Camila. So, right, I'm going to do this thing where I'm staggering on with the time delay, not being able to see you, not being sure that I'm giving you what you want, all of these things. But it's really wonderful, actually, because it's a demonstration of the difficulty of that last part of rhetoric, which is not the writing. I could come up with a really wonderful script and everything, and then it wouldn't land right necessarily. But what I'm trying to do now is demonstrate the difficulties of delivery and talk about this as someone who has been a writer most of my career. I was a journalist and then started making some speeches and became very interested in that, and how the delivery part of speaking, of a public utterance, the non-written speaking with real human beings watching either through a lens or in person. Glad you can hear now, Brian. How that's different. And the point of this session is to talk about how if you're a speechwriter, whether you are full-time, totally at the top of the profession, or part-time, don't do it very often, just occasionally you might need to write a speech for someone. I think there's something really, really wonderful and salutary to be had from practicing giving speeches. Now that I know you can hear me and that you're even there, I feel like I want to just explain slightly the strange setup that you see me in, strange possibly to you. I'm in the room at home where I work, and as well as being a writer and someone who talks about giving speeches, I'm an artist, and I've got bits of my pictures are all over the place. So I just thought I'd explain that, because you might think this is a strange room to be talking about public speaking. Well, it's just the only room that I do all my work in, and I do all of those things. So, hey. Now, another thing that comes to the point of that is that I do have a plan for today. I posted something about this earlier this morning. Hey, Stacey, you made it. Hello, Stacey. Stacey's one of the people who I did manage to get in touch with when I tried to contact people on LinkedIn. And then LinkedIn just blurred everyone's name out, other people. So I don't know your name. So forgive me for not name checking you if you're one of the ones who I didn't manage to say hello to. Blimey, it must be very early over there in New York, but I'm glad you're here. And in Canada. I like the sound of near Woodstock. What am I doing this for? Why do I keep on referring to people? You might wonder, or you may already know perfectly well, that what I'm trying to do is establish some kind of rapport with my audience. And that's you. You're my audience right now. And if I only had some facts to tell you, I could have just typed it and posted it on LinkedIn, and there'd be no interaction at all. Now, you might be thinking, well, who cares about the interaction? Like, why does that matter? Because, sorry about the tech trolls. It doesn't matter that much that Stacey, to other people, that Stacey is in Woodstock, but it matters to me because I'm really keen for you to know that I care that you're here right now. And actually, I drew another mind map, and one of the first things I wanted to share with you was list of attendees, and the only one I managed to write down before LinkedIn wiped everyone else out and blurred it, which is so unhelpful, was you, Stacey. So hello, and hello to the rest of you who've subsequently been in touch. I want to tell you, I posted a little video to remind people that this event was happening later, and the video had a clip from 23 years ago when the then highly regarded public speaker Tony Blair was slow hand clapped by the 10,000 people in women's organisation in the UK. And the reason why that happened, basically, is that he turned up with a speech that was a wonderful speech and everything, but it was really designed for the TV audience and not for the people in the room. And they knew that. They were being used as a kind of a prop. And so Blair, amazingly, for someone as good as he is, missed the spot, because although you can have a really great speech... Oh, thank you, Angtuman. I hope I pronounced that right. Thank you. I like my workplace. So Blair missed the spot because he was talking to people without really caring about them. He was just turning up and you might as well have sent a video. You might as well have just sent them the speech and printed it out, or frankly sent it to the TV people, because it was nothing to do with the Women's Institute. Excuse me, just recovering from COVID. So I had this plan and all these drawings, and I had the list of attendees, and I'd written down Stacey, and I also had a little drawing of Tony Blair there to remind myself to mention him. And also I've got one that I thought was a really interesting clip, and I saved it to my website a while ago, because it's about another form of kind of rejection by the audience. And that rejection by an audience is what all speakers fear, and I have viscerally experienced it, and it's really horrible. But I just want to show you another example. It's not about me. Now, how do I do this screen sharing thing? Okay, I really hope this is going to work. If it doesn't, it's only a couple of seconds anyway, so I need to screen share. Okay, you should be able to see this. This was a clip that I filmed my TV screen at home, because this was on the news in the evening. It was last night. The diplomats, I think this was in the European Parliament, maybe, can't remember. Could have been the UN. And the diplomats had decided that they weren't going to listen to the foreign minister of Russia, who had come to do the talk. So the only person in the audience, everyone else walked out. Let's see if you can hear this. I hope you can.
Over 100 diplomats from 40 countries turned their backs on him and walked out. Inside, no starker sign of Russia's growing isolation, as they alone listened to what Sergei Lavrov had to say.
So I just thought that was another really telling example of how you can be. I don't know how well Sergei Lavrov speaks. I have no experience of listening to him in the original Russian, but I can tell you that he might have turned up with a brilliant speech, but if the audience don't want to listen to you, it's not going to land. So this whole session that I'm doing right now is a kind of a taster of what I'm going to be doing with Brian, who's already made a comment in the comments below. Brian has invited me to do a live training session in The Hague very soon, and I'll post all the links. Or maybe Brian, if you're still here, you might be willing to do that in the comments. But essentially, the training session in The Hague is a chance for speechwriters to practice some of the things that your principles, I think that's the term that some people use, the people you're writing your speeches for, are going to have to go through. And I suspect that if you're writing a speech for someone and then they come back to you with, I can't say that, that's like impossible, like, you know, or you don't know what it's like to be in front of an audience, I suspect that that's quite debilitating. So I would really love to share with you what I have learned, not just by being a writer and going and doing talks because people invited me to, but also actively training in the discipline of theatrical improvisation. So I want to share with you a few ideas of what that actually means and why it was such a revelation to me as someone who principally saw myself as a writer, not as a person who stands in front of an audience. If you think about it for a moment, being a theatrical improviser means you go on stage and you do not know what you're going to say. So this is the totally perfect complement to being a great words writer. Like, you do the words great, but then are you okay with throwing the script away and making things up once you get onto the stage? Now, I'm not suggesting that Tony Blair would or should have thrown away the script and spoken from the heart to the Women's Institute 23 years ago, because it's hard. It's a very difficult thing to do, and there are 10,000 people and loads of TV cameras. For some reason, he decided to plough ahead with that speech, even though it was getting a bad response. Great. Thank you so much, Stacey. Yes, I suspect you're not alone in saying improvisation terrifies you. And what I would like to share with you is this idea that the anxiety, the fear, is exactly the flip side of the excitement. You can't have one without the other. If improvisation wasn't frightening, it wouldn't really be exciting, and you wouldn't really probably be doing it. You'd be going through the motions. So going up on stage and really, really not knowing what you're going to do requires you to take a leap of faith. It really does. And that means that you're always going to be doing something which you cannot know will be okay, but you're choosing to decide that it probably will be okay. Now, I learned from experience that it can go well and it can go not well, and I've had audiences walk out on me, not because of that. I also had, let me just see, I've got some pictures that I wanted to share with you. Oh yeah, I'll just, no, not that one. Yeah, this one, okay. So this is a picture of a friend of mine with whom I only got to know him because we trained in improvisation together. And this, you can't see it yet, but one sec. Screen share. No, not that one. Yeah, hang on a sec. This one. This one. Yeah, basically. Anyway, basically this one. I think you can see lots of different things on your screen at once, but the one I want to draw your attention to is the man with the guitar. This is my friend Steve. And Steve and I both trained in improvisation at the same time with a man called Keith Johnston, who's definitely worth you looking up. Keith Johnston wrote a book called Improv. Keith died earlier this year, just after his 90th birthday. Look at his book. Steve and I had trained in improv, and Steve then decided he was going to publish a book and launch it by going to the Riverside in London and busking and with a box of his books and seeing if anyone would buy them and if he could sing the song that would encourage people to come along or not. So it's obviously very high risk and quite scary, and I went along to film him. Anyway, the reason why I show you that is because when you're busking in a big public space like the South Bank by the river in central London, You have no idea who's coming past you. So you have to become really alert and really observant about who you are talking to. What kind of responses are you getting? Are you getting any eye contact? Does you giving them eye contact help? Are the ones who are wearing flowery shirts tourists? What should you sing if they're tourists? Are the ones who are wearing suits and like ties and things, are they busy office workers going for lunch? What kind of thing do you sing to get them interested in your book? So you're constantly thinking in real time, in a very nerve-wracking way, but very real way. You're thinking about, how am I engaging with these human beings? The woman who you can see on the left is a speaker at a previous conference that I attended along the lines of the one that Brian invited me to. Now, I want to keep this short. I've advertised this as being a whole hour, but I want to give you lots of your life back afterwards, so you can think, oh great, I've got all this free time. And I would also add that that's a good thing for any speaker to do, is be a bit short. Now, here I am again. Hello. Right, so you've got this idea, I think, of people being okay at improvising. Another of the drawings I drew this morning is of, now see if I can line it up right. No, not that way, this way. Winston Churchill. I was drawing it without reference to a photo, so forgive me if it's not very good, but anyway. Round-faced man with not that much hair and a bow tie. So I drew Winston Churchill as a reminder to myself that Churchill was a great writer, but at the time that he was giving speeches, he wasn't much esteemed really for being a great speaker, because he was very inflexible. In fact, one of his colleagues in the Conservative Party at the time said he had very powerful artillery, but it wasn't very mobile. So if the situation changed, Churchill wasn't much good at changing what he'd already planned and learned off by heart and so on. So I'm just trying to say, this is another way of thinking about, is writing enough, and how might you benefit by learning a bit more about the delivery side of things. And one of the things that I would suggest that you think about, I'm looking at my visual mind map, I'm not ignoring you, all of you, Angsuman, Stacey, and Brian, and Lana, and Camilla, and anyone else who hasn't named themselves. Hello, I can see you. What I'm driving at is that you can learn by practice, and there are some little exercises. So I'll give you one of those exercises right now to go away with, and just really hope that this tiny little taster gives you an opportunity to go away and practice this thing on your own. You're going to need a number of people, but it's worth it. It's really, really a good idea. So this exercise, probably one that I'll do at The Hague, although I may change my mind. It comes from I did several weeks over several years with Keith Johnston, and one of the things that he asked us to do was to, after we'd trained for quite a long time, was to go up on stage and just improvise in front of the rest. And you might think that we would be okay at that, not too bad. But there was a twist, because he gave the whole of the audience, individually, not as an audience, but as individuals within the audience, he gave everyone full permission to quietly stand up and leave as soon as they've had enough. So the person improvising might find that the audience gradually, slowly, one by one, gets up and leaves. So that added a certain amount of piquancy to the experience. Now, I'm going to ask you a question that I ask quite a lot, which is, how long, on average, do you think that we, relatively well-trained improvisers, were able to sustain the interest of our audience? Now, I'm not going to wait for the answers to pop up in the chat, because I'll be just sitting here for a while because there's this time delay. But often when I ask that question, people say, 10 minutes on average? Or people might say 5 minutes. Very occasionally people say less than that. But actually the average time for all of us improvisers, the average time for us to hold the audience was 15 seconds. And what that means is, when an audience doesn't feel engaged, and you may be leaving now, you may have cleared off. I don't know. All I can do is plough on in hope. Oh look, hello Friederike. I hope you're going to do the thing that we talked about when we said something on on message, by the way. I hope you're going to do that live stream because I'd love to attend. And I hope I pronounced your name right. Sorry if I didn't. No, it wasn't 5 minutes. It was 15 seconds, which means that a lot of people lost a large part of their audience within like 3 or 4 seconds. And you might think, well, how could that be? How appalling. And you might think if you're mostly a writer by background, it might remind you of times like when I was a journalist watching people in a cafe reading the magazine I'd written something in, and they get to the page where my story is. I'm thinking, oh great, they're going to love this. And then they just turn straight over because something didn't grab them. Like they missed all the joy of that story I'd put all that work into. So for a writer, it's a tremendous opportunity to learn how to engage with an audience and to recognize that there are limits, that you can't make anyone do anything. There are things that we all learn, and largely they're true, but probably you could break the rules on most of them and it'd still be okay. Things like holding eye contact, things like name checking people. You see that I've been trying to do that. I'm looking directly into the lens. Hello, that's my eye contact. The rays of my attention coming and landing on you, I hope. And name checking people and hoping I'm being quite respectful towards you. All those things are good practice skills for anyone writing speeches, even for someone else. It was a real idea. I think you should. Sorry, got a bit thrown off there. Yeah, so one of the things that he trained us in was to practice that experience of just like stand in front of the audience and see how long you can hold them. And I'll tell you that the winner, once he'd got to a minute, that was it. That was like, well, this guy knows what he's doing. And he had stopped. He wasn't desperate. He wasn't needy. He was clearly having a good time. And Keith Johnson's exercise had forced most of us inevitably to feel quite needy and anxious that the audience was going to walk out on us. And that neediness came across, and it doesn't work. It doesn't help. The guy who got to a whole minute had done the course before. I'm not saying that's not that cheating or anything, but he knew roughly what was required, which was do not be needy, have fun on the stage. So part of the skill that you can learn as a writer learning to be a speech deliverer is the kind of, I'm going to be okay and I'm going to stand on stage and I'm going to have a good time. So here I promised you an exercise that you can do as long as you've got a certain number of people willing to join in with you. Or if you come to The Hague, which of course I hope you'll do because I think it's going to be great fun and I'm looking forward to doing that pre-training. Hey Brian, if you're still there, did you manage to post a link to the event in the chat? It would be helpful. But if you can't, that's all right. Maybe you're not there. This is the exercise. I'll show you. I'll just show you a little, another little drawing. This one. So you see it's got 7 people sitting down and 1 person standing in front of them. 7 people sitting down and 1 person standing in front of them. You see that 2 of the people on the outer edges have got their hands down and the people in the middle have got their hands up. I think you can see that. I really hope you can see that. Oops, bashed my light. Don't blind the viewer by putting the light in their face. No, well, that'll do. Okay, so the point of this exercise, which you can do yourself. Oh, thank you so much. Brian has now put the link in the chat below. Now I'm blinding myself. That's better. So this exercise, you get 7 acquaintances, friends, colleagues, whoever they are, plus you. And you have all 7 sit down very close together. So it's not a dispersed audience. They're quite nicely, warmly connected. And importantly, quite close together. Because then what I suggest that you do is you take turns going up. And you all have a go at this because it's just so good at teaching you how to read your audience. So each of you goes up in turn to speak to this 7-person audience. It's quite important to have 7. You have too many is too hard, and fewer than 7 isn't really enough for what you'll get out of it. So you've got the 7 people sitting there, and each person who comes forward to talk about something talks about basically anything at all that they know something about. So what do I know something about? I know something about drawing mind maps. So for example, I could stand in front of 7 people and for a while I could talk about mind maps. if I hadn't done this exercise before, I'd probably, once I hadn't done it, and it was genuinely quite nerve-wracking. Now I've done it many times, it's not nerve-wracking at all. So it's good to practice. But so I go and stand in front of people and I talk about mind maps. And I say, well, I draw this and I draw that, and then I draw branches coming off the centre, blah, blah, blah. Mind map, mind map, mind map. The point is that the audience is given the instruction to raise a hand while they are getting eye contact. Whenever they get eye contact, the hand goes right up. And as soon as they don't get eye contact, they lower their hand. Oops, they lower their hand, lower their hand, lower their hand. As long as they're not getting any eye contact. Get eye contact, it goes back up. Lower, 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 lower. Not getting any eye contact, not getting any eye contact. And when they don't, when the hand gets down to the lap, they actually start making a noise. Beep, 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 beep. So that the person speaking cannot ignore the fact that they have failed to give that person eye contact. It's great fun, this game, because obviously you can raise or lower your hand as fast as you like. If you're trying to be reasonably fair, you can go slowly, but if you're too slow, you're not helping them learn anything. So if you go quite fast, then it really challenges the speaker to give you eye contact. And with 7 people, the speaker's going to be going and really looking. And I'll give you another little clue for what you can do to indicate that you're looking. This is nearly all of this is from Keith Johnson. Another little thing that you can do to really show someone that you're looking at them and you're not just scanning past like that, which is no use at all, is kind of just slightly raise your eyebrows. It might be a bit stupid at first, feel a bit stupid. It's not stupid. People will know that you're kind of acknowledging them, and that's quite a good thing to do. So you get up one at a time, talk about anything. Doesn't matter what you talk about. In fact, every time I've done this exercise, I've asked the 7 people sitting down what they remember about what the person said. Nobody remembers anything. All they're remembering is, they didn't look at me for a while. Oh yeah, they did look at me. No, they didn't look at me for a while. Oh, they did look at me. So there we are. That's an exercise that I think you could do. I wish that there had been more of an interactive quality to this. If I had got my brain working out better in advance, I might have done this on Zoom, but I'm trying to use LinkedIn Live things. And it turns out that LinkedIn does all it can to stop me knowing who's going to watch. Including, let me just show you that thing, because it is kind of quite funny, really, in its own way. And, not that one, not that one, not that one, this one. Okay, this is what I got when I tried to work out how I could say hello to people. No, not that one. Nope, not that one. This. Yeah, it said, try premium for 1 month. John-Paul, you might benefit from unlimited search. So there I was this morning trying to get in touch with people, say hello, I'm doing this thing, I'm grateful to you for coming, thanks for your time, all of that stuff. And I am grateful to you and thanks for your time. But I just wanted to say hello in advance, because this is, I suppose, the last thing that I'm going to leave you with. I'll come back on screen now. There we go. The last thing I'd like to leave you with is the sense that, and obviously this applies to you if you decide to do speaking, or if you're doing speaking already, as much as it applies to the people for whom you write speeches. A speech is never an isolated incident. It starts long before when you announce it and when you're invited, and you can send people little messages beforehand, as I tried to do this morning, and I did succeed with some people before LinkedIn blurred everyone else out. And also the conversation continued afterwards. So this has been very much a broadcast, which is somewhat to my regret, because I would have liked to have more interaction. Oh, thank you, Stacey. What a lovely thing to say. But this has been somewhat of a broadcast without much interaction, and it remains for me only to say I would love to hear from you. I'd love to have any questions that you want me to answer, or any comments or observations. It really, I like it. I enjoy it. I like that sense of connection with an audience. And I think that you might like it too. I really enjoy the idea that people who write speeches might want to have a go at doing them themselves. Oh, I'm terrible. I'm always forgetting, but I did write this book. It's called A Modest Book about how to make an adequate speech. But you see that my publisher tried to take the words modest and adequate and kind of hide them. So it almost looks like it says a book about how to make a speech. And despite my modest title, my very good friend Jay said it's an excellent book, or words to that effect. So now I've mentioned that, so my agent will be pleased. Thank you so much for coming. Really appreciate your time. It's just gone 30 minutes, so I'm just going to say thank you, and I'm going to clear off. And if you want to leave a comment, I would be delighted.